think for us right now, the most important thing is that we just start winning again, because we've been really shaky lately.
COG plays and we're like, all right, CN's got this.
Counter Logic Gaming gonna dethrone the #1 team in North America with the match win 2-1.
They lose, and we're like, hello?
Dignitas as a team is playing more as a unit. They're just finding their form right now.
The kick! Oh my goodness gracious! A double kill for the Dignitas jungler.
Dignitas is looking pretty good. If we're gonna win the split, we just need to improve, and we really need to focus on winning these matches.
It'd be great if we can go 2-0. That's my goal.
Welcome to the final week of the North American LCS Spring Split. The fates of many teams' postseason dreams rest on the results of this weekend. You saw Reaper, Smoothie, Contracts entering the studio, followed by Jensen just a short time ago. There's Special, the rest of Dignitas making their way into the arena as well. That's, of course, going to be the first series of the evening. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, and fortifying the analyst desk with me today, Sam Kobe Harmon Kensler. Fortification
I'm
engaged.
here. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's approach the end of the split and take a look at the standings here. TSM start the week in first place. Cloud9, Phoenix 1 follow them in second and third. From 4th to 7th, we have CLG, Team Dignitas, FlyQuest, and Immortals all fighting for the final playoff spots, while the remaining teams battle to avoid the promotion tournament. We'll see whose efforts are rewarded, starting with our matches today. We start the day with Cloud9 facing Team Dignitas. After that, Moon and FlyQuest take to the stage against Acadian and Echo Fox. A couple big ones today. Now, it's the final week of the North American LCS, and every match has playoff implications. So we're going to get into the games, but before we do so, we'd like to review our tiebreaker rules. If at the end of the weekend, two teams have the same match record, there are two rules we will use to break that before heading into a tiebreaker game. The first of which is head-to-head record. If the teams remain tied, we move to the following rule, which is game win percentage. Now, to be clear, that's total game win percentage. Whoever's the highest percentage will advance. If and only if they are 1-1 versus each other and have identical game win percentage, will they play a tiebreaker game? For more on those conditions, check out our official rules on LoLeSports.com. Now, before we have to worry about those tiebreaker scenarios, we of course have 3 playoff spots left to be decided.
Yeah. And only CLG, Immortals, Team Dignitas, and FlyQuest. So somebody is going to be left out of the loop there. They're all practicing for those 3 spots.
4 teams, 3 spots. One of those teams, Team Dignitas, is up tonight against Cloud9, who's also looking towards securing their first round bye.
Exactly, and that one's interesting because while Cloud9 are higher seeded, they've had kind of different trajectories here. Cloud9 recently going pretty poor performances. They were 4-4. Most recently, where it started out 8-0, spectacular for them. Whereas Team Dignitas had a very rough start and have recently been on an upward trajectory, 2-6 in their last 4 weeks versus a 6-2. Meanwhile, we're gonna have to look at, of course, the mid laners for these two guys for me, because that's one of the specific things that I want to draw out in this matchup. Jensen's play has kind of mirrored the trajectory of Cloud9 in the last few series. He's actually had some underperformances, and we'll see if he is able to come back, because Keen, who he's going to be playing against, has been just on point. The team is funneling more resources into Keen, and he's doing very good things with those resources.
Right, the players' journeys themselves between Jensen and Keen kind of mirror that of the team, where Jensen's struggling, so is Cloud9. Keen now doing much better. Hey, Dignitas is on a run. After that, of course, we've got Moon and Acadian looking to back up their trash talk as FlyQuest face Echo Fox.
Yep, these are 2 of the most hyped up North American homegrown talent jungle, from the beginning of the season. They both started out great. Echo Fox, Acadian's getting first blood every game, and then FlyQuest won most of their games in the beginning of the season.
Yep.
However, recently they've both come on hard times, and they really want to, prove themselves once again, make a resurgence, finish strong here at the end of the season. Plus, they spiced it up with a little trash talk on Twitter, or a lot of trash talk. They went back and forth for like an hour, I think, on Twitter.
A little is an understatement. There's a flurry of tweets that you can find out there leading up to this game, but overall, they ended it with kissy faces or whatever. So, good attitudes coming into the series today. But ladies and gentlemen, that's enough out of Kobe and I. Time to get into the game. So let's hand it off to the casters to bring us into the matches.
Thank you very much, Dash. Hello, everyone. I'm Rivington Bism III, and casting alongside me today will be Joshua Jat Leesman. It's been a while, but I found him. How you been?
I've been great. We're catching up on what we've been doing with our lives, casting on different streams, but now we're back.
It's like last time was Analyst Desk. Let's get right back into the game. Our first match of the day pits Cloud9 versus Team Dignitas, as you heard Dash and Kobe saying. And after an undefeated start to the split, Cloud9 still look now for necessary wins to nab that bye for playoffs, something you feel would be locked in already.
Exactly, because Cloud9 started 8-0, but since then, they've gone 4-4. And because of that, many were expecting their first-round bye to already be locked up heading into Week 9, but the team has struggled to have the same form from early in the split. One of the weaknesses that was prevalent, even when Cloud9 were undefeated, was that their early game was lackluster, and now we're seeing the mid to late game no longer draw them to victory. I mean, the deficits were being written off because they were such a good mid to late game team, but you can't look past the fact that they are 9th in first towers and 7th in gold at 15, which is already impressive that they're a second-place team with those stats because of how good their mid to late game is, but it is kind of trending in the wrong direction.
Right, and it's easy to brush off your weak points when you're a top team. We've heard teams say that momentum gets lost if you just sit at the top. It's hard to find where you can keep improving, but Team Dignitas were fighting to get out of last place before they turned it all around. So,
exactly. Dignitas started 2-6. Since they're 6-2, so a better record than Cloud9 in their last 8 games. And it is hard to attribute the reversal of Team Dignitas' fate on one factor. Many people would kind of say it would be the coach, but there's multiple things at play. Cop definitely one of them. But the other ones, Keen has really solidified himself as a consistent, impactful carry. He's gotten 8 player of the games since Cop joined as a coach. So that's pretty much in the last 4 to 5 weeks. And then you also look at Chaser, who was making a lot of risky, costly plays early on in the split that have been more reliable and look like he has a better game plan. And then, of course, the team's mid to late game coordination has improved as the English skills of Someday and Chaser have increased throughout the split, and they're working better as a team.
Everything's got to come together for the pieces to work. It seems like everything has been coming up daisies for Dignitas. Let's dive into the roster rundown. On the blue side, it is going to be Cloud9. That's Ray in the top lane. Contracts in the jungle. Jensen in mid. Sneaky at bot with his support Smoothie as usual. And Coach Reaper down bottom for picks and bans.
Definitely wanting to point out that Ray is starting in lieu of Impact.
That is
also what happened in the first matchup between Cloud9 and Team Dignitas back in Week 1. But on the red side, it is Team Dignitas, so it'll be Someday going up against Ray. Chaser in the jungle. Keen in mid. Laud as the bot laner with X Special and Coach Cop.
Talking to Cop last week, first thing he wanted to do was figure out what the team could really play as they got into game. We've seen that Someday has been very versatile for Dignitas. Chaser likes the aggressive early champions, and he was letting them play what they wanted. I'm excited to see if that has turned into anything else, and he's been able to mold compositions with this team now.
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny listening to Cop. I got to speak to him for a while when he first became the coach of Team Dignitas back in Week 5, and I was like, so how long have you had at the team? He's like, well, a day and a half. I'm kind of know what they play. And then that week they went 2-0. So I have always liked Cop's drafts. That's one thing that I think have markedly improved since he started on Team Dignitas, but even back when he was the coach of Gravity, I like the way he drafts.
Right.
Always seems to have very cohesive team compositions. Even if he's utilizing some lesser-known picks, he has a very good idea of what is strong, and I feel like is usually ahead in the game in that aspect.
Yeah, very good at flexing things, throwing a team off guard. Tanks and jungle get the focus as we come into this one. A little focus on Someday to start it off here. There's the Gragas as well. Could be Chasers, could be Somedays. We've seen the versatility of that champion coming about within the past few weeks.
Yeah, and we have been able to see a few more target bans for champions on patch 7.5, having the fairly significant nerf to LeBlanc, which still has her seeing a little bit of play, but by no means is a ban. Graves has kind of taken the mantle of the champion we see banned in most games along with Shen, but there is much more flexibility to counter ban, or target ban rather, instead of just banning the OPs.
Pretty slow pick, or should I say ban phase here for number 1. Camille goes out. What's going to be the toss-up? Remember with what we've been seeing lately is that Lulu, the Caitlyn, a bit of more Ezreal as well in the AD carry position.
Yeah, very true. Lulu has been pretty insane, especially on this patch 7.5. Would not be surprised to see Lulu banned here, because if it's not banned, I think it is a fairly straightforward first pick for Cloud9.
and quickly banned out. The Sneaky favor the AD carry. Had a pretty interesting Ezreal game last week where he got himself into trouble sometimes, but is one of his tried and true. It would be a different pickup, though, if they want it. Malzahar being covered here. Last 10 seconds. So C9 usually just takes their time anyways. Yeah,
the Malzahar first pick would not be too surprising. He has been one support who has been pretty much in meta this entire year. Speaking of the marksman you were just talking about, Caitlyn has been a bit of a mainstay. I'm wondering how much Lucian, Kalista, Twitch, Kog'Maw, that type of champion makes it in.
Yeah.
Specifically with the Blade of the Ruined King changes, making it, I feel like, a more efficient and better early game item. But yet to make the decision on those ADs since there were no bans to that position and leaves a lot up.
Hardly seeing that Kog'Maw lately. I'm interested. Can't wait to see how teams react to it.
Yeah, Sneaky played it last week.
Yeah.
Did not have much success with it. I believe they played it into a Nautilus and a Gragas, so he was never really able to be protected. It's
going to be fun.
Fell behind, could not protect the Kog'Maw with the Lulu and the Orianna. With Lulu banned, you're a little less likely to see that in the first place, so potentially some safer ADs picked in this game.
Interesting. Tahm Kench pickup, a little hide in the composition as well. We get the Rengar in there, which means Dignitas could latch on to an early game, which we have been saying Cloud9 has not had a good time in.
Yeah, definitely a very early Tahm Kench pick, and that's the most unconventional thing we've seen so far in this draft. Can work against Malzahar in the fact that you get to consume whoever gets Nether Grasped, but also it is not a great harassing support, which opens the door there for Sneaky to be able to pick Lucian, because with Malzahar Lucian, knowing they're up against Tahm Kench plus X is probably winning lane no matter what Vlad picks for the marksman.
Shouldn't be too bad. Caitlyn and Lane just farm it out against each other for Lot if he does decide to go with that later. And it will be Contracts picking up his jungle. Elise gets locked in. More junglers have also been favoring as well.
Yeah, probably a coincidence, but ever since Meteos returned to the LCS, we have been seeing a little bit more Elise. A few other things contributed to that, like Rengar nerfs. This is interesting with the Nautilus lock-in right here. That throws their top laner in, but it leaves their marksman out. So ban phase 2 now has mismatched roles that have been picked.
It is interesting. They got to consider Gray's champion pool here. That would definitely not be a ban they'd have to consider if Impact were in. So Kled on that board. Probably focus out of Caitlyn and see what Lod can actually put into the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on whether or not Cloud9 thinks it is worthy to try and ban Lod out right here. You always have to try and guess, you know, what is the delta between what you were banning versus what you're going to be able to get up, because inherently red side has an advantage in phase 2 of the pick phase because they get first pick of the new phase as well as last pick of the new phase. So they get a lot of control of what they're doing here, meaning Team Dignitas will be able to counterpick their mid laner kind of regardless. So because of that, Cloud9 is trying to ban out the things that Jensen wouldn't want to lane against, because what this is signaling is they don't necessarily care if Lod plays a Caitlyn or an Ezreal or whatever would come after that, since there's only 2 bans that Cloud9 would be able to throw into that position.
For sure. What is the last one? Make sure they hit against Keen. The stats for Jensen and Keen quite close. Jensen edges it out. Find Keen having about 100 more gold to the 10-minute, but Jensen could have more CS. So they find their value in different places.
Yeah, Jensen leads the league in CS per minute as well as CS differential at 15. And we had a stat a couple weeks back where the perception is that Jensen gets camped for by Contract, but the reality is he actually has some of the lowest jungle proximity from his own jungler, which means Jensen is applying a lot of that early game pressure on his own. Beyond that, Jensen also has the highest CS share post 15 minutes, so he is a very commanding mid laner from a farm perspective. But this is what we're talking about. There are so many ADs, and if Team Dignitas was willing to leave something unbanned, they had something ready for it, and it's the Twitch.
Exactly. It's very smart for C9 not to ban out the AD, knowing Lod could have something, but it's going to be a Twitch. Something we still didn't think he would fall back on. So we'll have to see how Lod can play on this. Going to have some sneaky invis on the side of Dignitas, and the Jarvan getting locked in here along with the Orianna for Sneaky Smoothie's last picks.
The return of the Ray Jarvan. I think it's also funny how it's against Lod. The first time Ray pulled out the AD Jarvan in the NALCS, I think he killed Laud about, if memory serves, 1,700 times in the same game. I think that was the number. It was about 10, but Laud had an absolutely miserable Sivir game.
Did we have a slideshow of that?
Yeah, he was just straight up one-shotting him. Obviously, he's had a couple of games where the top lane Jarvan didn't work out, but this is going to be interesting because he's up against a tank, so he can't necessarily kill the tank, but when he gets to the rest of the game, that's a pretty lethal pick.
Ooh, Elise mid. Orianna top. Look at that. No. They have until 20 seconds to switch everything around. We do see the Azir pickup. Actually, almost no hesitation here from Dignitas. That'll protect the back line from this dive-in from Elise Jarvan trying to get back onto your Twitch.
Yeah, Keen's had a couple spectacular Azir games this split. Early on in the split had a 9-kill game, which they were unable to close. Last week had a 10+ kill game, which they were able to close. So some pretty remarkable late game scaling from the Twitch and Azir positions, but that can all go away if a big Jarvan gets a Cataclysm and a Shockwave onto both of them at any point in the game. So Cloud9's composition, very lethal, but also very dangerous. There's a lot of squishy champions in this game and a lot of people who can kill each other, and very few kind of traditional tank line champions that we're going to be able to see.
Lethal and dangerous for C9. Now we see it on your screen again here. Is this a composition that can bolster an early game deficit? What is their history? Or can they just take the lead from the beginning? How can they work this combo?
That's the worry if you're Cloud9, because whenever you're picking a low tank team composition, you are more variable based on gold leads. If you fall behind and you're all squishy people, you do not have much of a fallback pattern, which is Cloud9 right here. So if they do fall behind and they don't have the burst to take out a Twitch or an Azir, they just lose fights 4 or 5-0. So Cloud9 has to have a strong early game, I feel like, to win this game.
All right, hashtag C9 win, hashtag Dig win. We are on the Rift. We're about to see how this game matches up. We are into week 9. It's crazy how fast we went through the spring split here, and teams have found themselves at the top of the standings, and a few, like Dignitas, trying to claw themselves into that playoff position here as we hit the final week.
Exactly. You retouch on the match records of these guys. Team Dignitas comes in at 8-8, 6-2 in their last 8 though, so definitely on an upwards trajectory. C9 still holding on to that second place spot in the standings. If they take care of business this week, they will be the number 2 seed, but there is a slight chance that they can lose that seed and lose their playoff bye as they come into the week at 12-4.
Dignitas could hit them hard here. They have P1 after this for C9, and Dignitas will be looking at Immortals, so not the easiest games for these two to end out the split.
New fan support coming in for Cloud9 for sure. Another one of the games with Ray, they have a much better record with impact in the lineup.
True.
Ray is 4-4 in games that he has played in this split.
It definitely almost provides a different aspect of the game. You see Ray doing much more split pushing for the team. Impact will be in the fights a lot faster. They'll leave Ray to keep that split push going, kind of yo-yo the aggression in the fights and kind of string a team out until they lose their aggression. Starting off now, minions meet in lane. Let's get on farming. It's time to farm. Looks like double starts onto the Raptor side. A little help from Someday, as well as a blue buff start. They'll know Contracts is doing that. Is Smoothie and Sneaky instantly in lane. So everybody should be able to stay safe here in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, Law next special, they're going to get pushed in early, as almost always happens against a Malzahar. He just has to put the voidlings on you, and you have to back away. So Sneaky will have a nice start to that lane.
Getting the autos in. Just looking to get that first mastery tag on and see where the minion wave sits. Nice. Command move dissonance. Actually comes out on top of that one. Jensen will look to keep the pressure onto Keen. You know it's going to be hard to keep that lane as pushed. He doesn't want to find himself under his turret.
Yeah. Chaser opting for 3 buffs on the red side to start. He'll be left relatively low after this, so about half health. I thought maybe he would try and go for an early gank top with that path, but unless you get a pretty insane pull, you're going to be low as Rengar after that first clear. So he's recalling anyway, and Ray was luckily safe to be flag and dragging that deep into the lane at level 2.
A little pressure from C9. They couldn't make their way all the way in, but just enough to keep Laud and Special in lane. Good job by Smoothie to get himself into a good position.
Yeah, and a smart counter jungle by Contracts. I mean, Rengar does usually struggle with his early game health, so he's either doing that 3 camp on the top side or he's trying to do a full clear. If he would have done a full clear, Contracts would have been in position to kill him most likely. Since he did the 3-camp clear anyway, Contracts was able to get that counter jungle in. So a good knowledge of what Rengar is capable of in the jungle, able to steal the blue buff, and now maybe even prep to kill him if Chaser shows his face in the river.
Oh! On the contrary to what we usually see.
He missed the
the Cocoon misses as well. That's going to be Chaser able to use the brush if he gets himself back and forth to deny damage. The repel goes down. He looks to get himself again. Flashes from over the wall.
Now Keen's stuck.
And he's good to go. Looks like his special will get himself out. Chaser slowly coming back through the bottom of the team. Lod getting through invisibly, but he's not getting himself to a good spot. Special throws down the gray house. Should stay alive. Sneaky with a few more shots behind the turret. They can't do much. A great exhaust coming out as well. Flashes forward. They could be able to work on that later, but now C9 is left to scurry out of here. Teleport from Someday. It's late, but is it just in time for the low health bars of Cloud9? Someday with a lockdown. Next one on to Contracts. That's the last repel he'll be using before he goes down. Trade of buffs once again over to Keen as he's looking good in the mid lane now.
10 players bot lane, 4 minutes into the game. That escalated quickly, I would have to say. Watching this one, I don't think Contracts expected Chaser to come out, so they both revealed and surprised each other. And Chaser got a lot of use out of his ferocity here as they're both trying to juke in and out. And because Keen entered first, it did force the repel from Contracts a little bit, delaying that kill. The rest of this fight ended up getting super messy. Watch Ray here, though, as he flash follows X Special with his EQ and still gets the knockup, which is what kind of allows him to get this kill. But here, everyone kind of thought Sneaky was going to have it, but X Special held his exhaust and ended up delaying the kill long enough that the flash had to be used. And once that happened, the very late TP comes in from Someday and actually turns the tides of this fight, since Team Dignitas still had all their damage dealers up. And in an elongated engagement, it is actually Team Dignitas to come out ahead of this with the 2-for-1.
We say those tanks are going to come into play. They still have quite a bit of HP and resistance in this early game. And those are the ones that stand tall as they come in late. They look to tag on this advantage immediately.
Oh no, Contracts is on a ward.
Both teams.
Oh no.
Same thing. Cocoon hits Someday. He's still going to be able to lock down Contracts. An instant explosion as Contracts basically just got back onto the map. Ray gets locked in. He's got an assist from the last fight, but now he goes down. A long walk back to top lane. His teleport is also down.
Yeah, and what a play by Chaser to be in that spot.
Yeah.
A lot of the jungle game is mental, and it just worked out so well because Contracts went Boots Mobility Rush, which is a very gank-heavy rush, but Chaser doesn't actually know that until he sees him. The fact that he just waited in that brush, warded over the wall, was patient enough for Contracts to jump right into him. Once he made that jump, it was going to be a win for Team Dignitas, and the fact that Ray was also up there to go for a gank was just icing on the cake. This is exactly what C9 didn't want to happen, where Ray falls behind early as well as Contracts, because now Someday gets to a point where he can not be threatened by Ray as the Jarvan.
And there's a wave refresh that just hit Ray's turret. Ray had an entire wave lost there. Another one had enough time to get all the way back to the turret, so missing a bit of experience. Someday may start to catapult here. Knowing his wave is pushed, Someday makes his way to mid lane as Lod and X Special continue to deal with this pressure from Sneaky and Smoothie.
Yeah, the bottom lane is getting pushed in frequently, but you're wondering how they're going to punish that. I mean, Chaser is level 6, 7 minutes into the game, and Contracts would want to set up ganks because he's Boots Mobility, but if these ganks don't work early, C9 does start to fall further and farther behind. Missed gank by Contracts in the mid lane as Keen is able to jump to safety.
Quickly gets out. Good control wards for C9, showing that they want to own that bottom side of the map with what has been happening. Infernal Drake as well would be quite nice to start things off from a behind early game. Only about a 1,000 gold lead here, so obviously anything can still happen. You don't see too much action unless Chaser has been starting it. Contract still trying to get his feet wet as he went to the top and bot lane, but nothing has started yet. On to Lod. Quick devour by X Special. They're expecting that over and over in the bot lane here. But like you said, when can they actually pressure it is the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a difficult lane for Lod and X Special to play.
Yeah.
The trick will be keeping themselves healthy enough that they are not vulnerable to turret dives, and also being able to sustain up well enough with the Warlord's Bloodlust as well as the early Vampiric Scepter. Looks like both of those guys are rushing Blade of the Rune King.
Ooh. Second guesses, actually. The pull-off of Sneaky and Smoothie made him aware that they knew. So those control wards coming into play for C9.
They might just brute force dive this.
Yeah, as top wave, once again, they know Ray does not have much. He came back with a longsword on the last buy, so he'll take the full damage and go down. Teleport to come back this time, however.
Wow. I mean, we
If
talk
he
about...
wants to, he can go down again.
Yeah, he most likely will. We talk about fallback patterns and how the top lane Jarvan doesn't really have them. This is an example of why. So now that Ray is doing the AD Jarvan and does not have tank stats and is not building towards tank stats, all it takes is someday to land any CC onto him, and that buys the time for Chaser to go in and burst him down. Very quick first turret for them, a very easy gank. Looks like it's giving up the Infernal Drake, but that, I believe, is a cost worth admitting for Team Dignitas.
Doesn't change Cloud9's historical being behind in the early game, but it does help them not having most dragons. That first dragon in the early game. Quite low on that as well. Trade over to Smoothie. That was close.
Yeah, 7 health. Calculated.
Not even close,
When
baby.
we say
Not even close.
7 health on the elites to prevent the execute, but there was no enemy threat arriving for that one.
We just have to make it interesting. So we'll pick up the first one, but we can't do it fundamentally. It's got to be fun and exciting. 5-1 here, just coming up on to 10 minutes. Like you said, top turret for that dragon as Cloud9 try to get a few things back for the loss of the map. But now this means if Dignitas wants to, they might be able to start messing with the lanes. A little more rotations from Someday means a lot more pressure here back on the bot side.
Yeah, the teleport's up for Someday. The ultimate will be up soon. Chaser is the most farmed member in the game at 4,200 gold, which is 1,500 more than contracts right now. So he has the ability to dictate the map here, controlling the rivers as they're taking both Scuttle Crabs right now and hoping to put the pressure on. They have that one losing lane on the bot side that is losing in the sense that it is shoved in, not necessarily losing in the fact that they are dying. So the rest of the map is where Chaser would be free to roam.
These fights not going to look good for C9 soon. Someday can finish this. Sunfire Cape 2-0-3, probably sitting on a bit of money as well. And he is going to be unkillable. Long fights are going to favor Dignitas. C9 is going to have to find a way to dance around these fights and use every ability to disengage, really, to get the victory.
Yeah, one potential saving grace for C9 is the fact that if Ray is still able to get some farm, their burst of damage onto the Azir and the Twitch can be lethal, but they are falling dangerously far behind right here. That's 3,000 gold by 11 minutes. Sneaky's still not even up to Blade of the Ruined King. We'll wonder if he goes for the Black Cleaver or the Trinity Force next. Either way, it's a pretty early to mid-game spiking build, which is where they really need the power so they do not fall further behind against the Nautilus and the Twitch.
That's a good point. You take out Keen and Lod, and you're left with Tom Kench trying to lick you, and Someday just hitting you with a big anchor. Not too much damage to follow through, but highly conditional.
Wow.
If they were to find those two on the backside. A lot of defensive wards here for Cloud9, as you see the majority of them inside their own jungle. Actually feeling like Dignitas is going to invade or make an error enough for them to come back in this one.
Yeah, that's an incredibly early QSS by Keen. Really just wanting to make sure he doesn't get flash ulted by Malzahar in any type of comeback attempt for C9. So Keen is hunkering down in the mid lane, saying he's staying there for a while and is just going to try and keep pushing out and farming. Because he's not doing much else with Berserker Greaves and a QSS.
As I say that, you see Smoothie. He just littered the top
Here's
side.
our ward.
They're going. He gets Chaser. Gonna be the Devoured. Forgot about the Kench. He has been unbenched. No teleport coming in. Someday's already here. I blinked, looked topside to see if Someday still had teleport, and that was Contracts going down. Especially with the gray health to bait in something else, but he baits himself in. Goes down on that one, and the entirety of Dignitas pulls back in a 1-for-1.
Yeah, a good flash devour by Xpecial at the start of that to save Chaser. That's why you bring the Tom Kench about against Malzahar. A bad Abyssal Voyage. No one wanted to join him on that journey because there were 3 or 4 people he was jumping into. Trades it back after making a good play.
Upgrade on the Ruby Sightstone for him. Look for a little HP and more vision. You see this here. Quick hit on Chaser.
Yeah, eats him out of the Shockwave, which is why I feel like Team Dignitas looks so confident, and it's why Chaser was willing to jump in with full health. But once they do this, who's going to follow through? Like, they could bring a Nautilus there, but even then it's just going to be 2 people, and they're going to be jumping into a Malzahar silence, which is kind of exactly what happened. So not everyone on the same page right there for Team Dignitas.
He also went real quick, so I don't think he gave anybody a chance to jump in. It was basically, I'll slow him, let's all follow up. A little too crazy. Sometimes we do it. Get ahead of yourself. They still have quite a lead here in gold. Hopefully not losing their map lead. C9 has been able to kind of wrangle up Dignitas in the same spot for their fights, which is kind of how C9 gets back in a game. You start doing what they want on their terms. Here they are to slow the game down again. The lanes are pretty much evened out. That was a teleport from Ray that was on that last play, so Someday does have his.
Yeah, that opens the door for Someday to make plays in the bottom lane. However, Team Dignitas do not have very good deep wards for him to teleport in on. It does feel to me right now that even though Team Dignitas jumped out to an early lead, they do not feel obligated to push it too hard because they do have Azir Twitch. 2 incredibly potent late-game scaling champions, as well as the more well-formulated late-game team fight with Tom Kent and Nautilus to tank. So they jumped out to an early lead, and they're just using that as a buffer so they can make it to the late game, is my read on how they're playing the rest of this match.
Does have to feel good. As long as at that point you don't make that one big mistake, right? It's either you pressure a lot and secure that lead, or make sure that fight you feel is going to be in your favor goes in your favor. Here, bot lane, expecting this pressure to come through as Sneaky and Smoothie have just been handing it to Cloud9 Special. Only 10 CS behind, so still faring well for the amount of pressure. Here we go. Team Invi is looking to get some work done on the side of Dignitas.
Yeah, Dignitas would be walking into a counter gank if Chaser goes for this right now.
Ooh. Remember that teleport's there from Someday. It's going to be a long walk for Ray. And Keen is just off in the wings. He is completely seen by wards, though, so C9 is privy to his movement. It looks like he pulls off. Everybody's going to calm down. No ganks coming in here. But like I said, C9 going to that bottom side, continuously pulling Dignitas there so they can get this engaged.
Yeah, and this could be big. Second Infernal Drake up. Now Team Dignitas pulls the trigger because Ray can't match. C9 has to run.
Just missing the anchor. Chaser decides to go in off the ultimate. He gets hit, devoured up by Xpecial. Shockwave brings them both back in, and Ray's into the fight by himself now as he makes it over. And it looks like he may go down. He did not get Lod, so Lod's able to deal the DPS from the side. Smoothie very low as well. Gets out with a sliver of health. But the soldiers move forward by Keen as he grabs himself a kill. Ray falls as well as he went too deep. And it looks like the 2 members sneaking in contracts, limping around as Jensen looks to play babysitter, trying to protect all of them. And he may not be able to do it. They go for Jensen first. Take the shields out of the fight and find the rest of the members. C9 with an ace. Or I should say, Dig gets it. I was going to say it's clean, but Chaser did fall.
Yeah, but still a massive win for Team Dignitas. I misspoke at the top of that. Ray's teleport had returned from cooldown, but it was still the smart call for Team Dignitas to go for that fight because they had that early game lead and they were able to get the type of fight setup that they desired. Watching this one more time, everyone on C9 has to run because, once again, it's not like Ray can just teleport in and immediately be a tank threat. So, yes, Chaser gets eaten, but when Ray comes in here, he's an AD Jarvan, so they are able to just turn damage on him and get a lot of it. And then Someday is actually zoning out 4 along with Keen on the other side. So Ray unable to really make an impact when he comes in. They still have a good ability to turret dive here. Keen tanking turret because he's the highest health, actually quite smart. Chaser does end up going down, but it's worth it when they get 3 under the turret. And just a well-executed fight overall by Team Dignitas.
You just see Ray did get teleport quite quick once that fight started, but you can see putting the instant of pressure on it a few seconds later than Someday is really made a difference in that fight. Both TPs down. Again, Someday should come back up just a few seconds sooner. Not sure they'll be able to work on quite a quick play next time, but Dignitas still holds a lead. Cloud9, that was about the 3rd attempt they had sent that many people bottom to try and pull Dig into their own fight. Dig said, all right, we see what you're doing, and we'll take the fight.
Yeah, and this game is still speaking to the trajectory of these teams throughout the second half of the season. Yes, it is a 2nd place team against a 5th place team, but if you look at that second half of the split, Team Dignitas has been looking better. Cloud9 still having some of those early game issues, but it is getting worse in this sense. Chaser, again, with an incredibly potent early game, really doing a lot to vault Dignitas into these winning positions, and a 5,000 gold pre-20-minute game, especially when Cloud9 has picked this composition, which is very mid-game focused as far as getting Jarvan, Elise, and Lucian into the points where they can immediately threaten kills. It's going to be a really tough one for C9 to fight back from.
Yep. So good on Dignitas as well, staving off aggression in the bot lane. We saw some turmoil from Dignitas' bot lane here at the start of the season, seeing a pain point there as if Keen carried or Chaser was able to get something going. But like you said, everything is helping, and with the 9th week now, final week, teams have also figured out C9 a little bit more. The strength of their plays not as potent, and that early game teams are realizing if they can get a lead, you just have to hold on to it.
Yeah, and looking at how C9 is played, I mean, a lot of it, this isn't necessarily true for all teams, but a lot of C9, you see an invade from Sunday, they're actually going for a kill. Rengar ultimate, how far will they chase? They call it.
Bramble back.
Yeah, you see a lot of C9 in the way they like to play. C9 like to play so much through their lanes and then just get to mid-game where they feel like they've been better. So as far as percentage of games total CS, they're #1 in the league, even though the rest of their early game isn't that great because they're not super active early game on the map. What I feel like is happening a little bit in North America is teams are becoming more active in the early game, and C9 is having a harder time keeping control of the map, so when they get to mid-game, they're losing control of the map a little bit more. Jensen has still been solid, but all this swapping around they've done with Rain Impact, I feel like their top lane has been rather inconsistent and underwhelming throughout a lot of this split. And then you have teams like Team Dignitas who are coming in with a lot more cohesion on the second half of the split, whereas it feels like C9 has been a little bit more stagnant.
Not able to find kind of the same role from each one of the lanes. As you say, they play for the lanes, and that's something we kind of should see the win coming out of. Those switches between Ray and Impact, a little bit of a variable between where actually contracts would need to play the lanes, and that also changes up how C9 has to enter these games.
Yeah, I mean, at the very start of the split, Sneaky and the rest of C9 were saying, we think we're going to have a slow start because we know Contracts is good, but he is new to the NALCS and he needs to adjust to the competitive environment. And then I think everyone was a little bit shocked that they started so well, 8-0, and now we're kind of, at the latter half of the season, recognizing the growing pains of trying to get into that system, and Contracts is getting a little bit figured out by some more of these junglers in the North American LCS.
That's very true, as well as do these kind of, as we see C9, one of the top teams that should lock in that spot. How does this work in a best of 5? When you can attack Contracts a little bit more in these games. Make sure if picks and bans and a few didn't go well, you can pinpoint that aspect. A little bit of a pinpoint over near the Baron pit here. 21 minutes in, Dignitas look to make another engaged shock.
Big shockwave!
3 members. That gray health is basically everything. Someday to the backside is Keen again, shoves the soldiers forward and slices. Dices Cloud9 down. Contracts the next one to go here. Someday continues to tank the flash forward as he picks up the kill for himself. They will go down as they went a little deep here.
Boy.
And Someday won't be able to get that last shield down tight to the depth. Falls. And Ray now trying to pick up some kills. What is this from Dignitas? They have given the game back over to C9 in a sense.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves talking about how the playoffs and best of 5s is going to factor, and still know that C9 have some of the best team fighters in the league. If Jensen would have been a little bit closer, he would have been able to see Laud there through the camouflage, but start of this fight actually looked pretty good for Team Dignitas. Yes, X Special gets a little bit caught up, but immediately Team Dignitas looked to turn. And the shockwave from Jensen was massive in that it hit 3. Then the back of the fight, though, was looking better for Team Dignitas because Someday came in along with Azir and Rengar, and they eliminate 2 people. But what happened next is, I believe, the wrong person got turret aggro here, so it's on Someday as he moves in. No, okay, it actually stayed on Someday the whole time, but Keen ends up taking a lot of damage from Ray and Jensen, and AD Jarvan actually got to hit a little bit, going a little bit tankier with the Tiamat. The triple kill coming in for Ray for massive, and the skirmishing at the very end here.
That Jensen heal.
Shows why Ray can be so solid, not to mention the Jensen heal, but still 3,000 or 4,000 gold lead, and the pace is accelerating. Team Dignitas going for Mountain Drake.
Ray's like, just get me in a fight. I mean, that's what Cloud9's been trying to do, right? We see him in the bot lane over the past 20 minutes. 4 or 5 members. There were 10 at one point. We're going to go again. Someday pulls the trigger here to the mid lane. Oh, the minion in front. They do get the flash, though. Sneaky has blown that. Relentless Pursuit will be one of his only escapes for the next fight. Someday now postures so the team can look for this Mountain Drake.
Yeah, and Someday has Depth Charge up on Nautilus if Sneaky looks closer for this next fight. A ton of Summoner spells were burned prior, so we're ready to fight again, but almost all ultimates up. Here we go.
They feel like they can burn down Someday. He's shielded up and devoured up. Dragon is going to be smited down. A quick walkout here. C9 pointing mid. They feel like they can route Dignitas to it. And they were actually pulled to the Dragon. And may be able to get it, but it looks like it will be defended here in the siege.
Yeah, and the question is now, how many more fights can C9 get like the one they were able to turn around? Jensen is their most formidable member right now. Only 600 gold behind the highest on Team Dignitas, who is Chaser, 200 gold behind Keen. But if he's able to land those clutch shockwaves on the Twitch and the Azir, he can dictate a lot of how these fights play out. So C9 was facing a massive deficit, as has been not necessarily customary, but we've seen small and medium-sized deficits that Cloud9 have been able to fight back from on multiple occasions. Oh dear.
Oh, sewer skewers! Lod comes up with the kill onto Sneaky. Very nicely done. I've been waiting for Lod to get out of lane and do that. Not that he hasn't. He just hasn't had the chance to find himself in Viz and scooting around.
Just Twitch things.
Yep.
If you get the jump with the Blade of the Ruin King, Sneaky has no flash, couldn't return damage right away. They have a Mountain Drake, which increases their ability to threaten Baron.
Blade of the Rune King as well. Chunk it down just a tiny bit more. It looks like C9 is right on the heels. Shockwave, double, almost deja vu, but
Somebody's behind.
We've
seen this before.
He's just rolling on through. Remember, they do have the Sun Disc there as well. If turret shot tag on, Ray could go down, gets himself bumped out by Emperor's Divide. He's going to be the focus, though, even with Command Protect. He goes down to the soldiers. As the Sands divide C9, trying to get into the jungle. Summoners are still up for both teams. Pretty crazy fight can still happen. Lot is just kind of walking into the fire right now. Figured the team would be a bit more behind him and popped out. 3 deaths now on the side of Dignitas.
Oh my goodness, that is a dangerous corridor for Team Dignitas to keep fighting in, but this one's gonna keep going for a bit more.
Ooh. Baited out, they called contracts back. Seeing a Soldier of Keen, but there was another one of those fights. Dig is happy to try and take him as well.
Yeah, Ray's becoming a threat, so that just increases the AoE ability on C9 here. Remember, Cataclysm was changed about a year ago to do AoE damage, so when Team Dignitas follow through here, again, the Shockwave hits him in pretty much the same place it did in the last fight. Someday flanked from the same spot, and then Ray gets the EQ ult into pretty much everyone. Picks up a quick double kill before getting hit back by the Emperor's Divide. And then, at the back end of this fight, Laud was just hoping to do Twitch things, go to camouflage and sneak a kill. But he didn't necessarily account for Jensen, who gets the shield across, kind of accelerating the ball into threat range for Laud, and he wasn't necessarily tracking that. Laud died with heal and flash up, but I don't think he was able to track the Orianna through that fight, which is why the burst of damage caught him by such a surprise.
My bad. Did me too. Thunderlords, the ender of many AD carries who feel like they have the 1v1. C9 trying to regain control here as they move their wards up. Control wards being focused to the top side for Dignitas. Teleport is not up for Someday. Should have it for the fight though once the teams meet. And the split push now begins. I was actually saying this earlier, is C9 seemed like they had trouble yo-yoing the aggression with Ray on the sideline, or when to bring Rayer from the side. This game has seemed to work out a little more in their favor, but how is Ray getting out of a pretty sticky situation? A lot of crowd control in the 2v1 situation for himself. Flag and drag. The anchor toss to be up. And the flash. Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, and you can see he has built much more defensively than we were used to seeing when he was super fed. It's a 3,000 health Jarvan now with 100 of both armor and magic resist. So when Chaser and Someday do that, he doesn't instantly die. It does still produce a positive play for Team Dignitas because they get the mid lane turret, but the kills are definitely not as easy for Team Dignitas as they were earlier in the game.
I love the build though. You gotta walk a fine line of going in and burning everybody with the Sunfire cape and getting out. Last time double kill. I'm sure he's starting to feel a bit better about what happened in top lane earlier, which is going to make his engages a bit more confident. And the team will follow up. 16 to 10 is we went from pretty bloody early game to an even bloodier mid game. Yeah, the fights do not stop. Mid still stands here on the side of Dignitas. They've done a pretty good job at keeping their turrets up, as most of the focus has been on the champions themselves.
This is turning into a very competitive game after it looked for a while like Team Dignitas was going to be able to snowball at home, but huge credit to Jensen and Ray turning around fights from large gold deficits. The NALCS in general is very weird this year when you're trying to track early game gold leads into victory. Looking at a lot of the other leagues, pretty much all the other leagues, the top 2 teams, SK Telecom, KT Rolster in Korea, H2K and G2 in Europe, the winningest teams are the best early game teams. If you just look at gold at 15. Not the case in the NALCS. I believe C9 and TSM are 6th and 7th, respectively, in gold at 15, but 1st and 2nd in win rates. So we have very weird mid games in North America, and a lot of very close games. That's one other thing, is there's not a very large delta between the gold at 15 of most of these teams. Cloud9 is just turning into one of those teams that lose the early game, but win the mid and late game more often than not.
Ruining our stats.
It makes it much different than it's ever been before.
That's true.
We even have a team in Envy who is 1st place in the league at killing the first turret, but last place in the standings. I think that's another one that I don't think has ever happened before. It's been a weird year.
Indeed it has. And it can only get weirder. That's the best part of that. That's the best part. It doesn't stop here. 30 minutes, 3 Drakes now to Dignitas. Great control over the objectives. Cloud9 was able to get the first Infernal, which pretty big help now that they have been falling behind. The extra damage is going to help anywhere at this point. And Dignitas, power in numbers. They waited for C9's wards to be in, C9 to leave, and Dignitas by the book goes back.
They're rushing it.
Jockeying now for
He's
position.
going!
Oh, how did he do? The Emperor's Divide pushes him out, but in the last moment, gets the smite down, and the fight ensues. Smoothie goes in, gets the Death Grasp down, but he's gonna have to back out of this one. That's Ray going down. The team has to assess now. Can we get onto Someday? Yes, we can. Dissonance over to him. That's gonna be Chaser going down as well. And it looks like they're gonna be able to continue on this fight. One more falls. That's going to be special as Keen and Lod get themselves to safety, but Baron to C9.
Wow, Contracts has been so clutch with Baron steals. Last week against Envy had multiple objective steals in the same game. This time barely gets in a range to smite, basically 1v5. Team Dignitas was so set on burning the Baron and then fighting, the Contracts was able to sneak in and turn it into a 50-50. Now C9 take the lead. They were down 6,000 gold in this game, Riv.
That is absolutely crazy. I wonder if we can actually get like the smite range in a replay later on the analyst desk to show where he actually was in terms of length.
Yeah,
because this is crazy.
Through with Dead Man's Plate, Runic Echoes, and Boots of Mobility. They exhaust him, that doesn't matter.
Oh, he flashes in. Okay, so he was pretty close. We don't need to see that.
Flashes as he gets Emperor's Divided to get the smite steal. And then Team Dignitas is still pretty healthy for this. So in an ideal world, they actually still kind of turn and burn the Baron. That's one of those situations where they think they can get in the time. They just cast the Emperor's Divide earlier so that he can't flash over. And then when they did not have Emperor's Divide, it was harder to appeal for the fight. C9 really started to turn it on. Jensen getting very, very fed. And remarkably, Cloud9 had the lead.
And you can't say anything for that call. And Dignitas, 2 Mountain Drakes, Infernal, it should be burned down quick. Emperor's Divide should kick out Elise. That's the call. But C9 make you think twice.
Yeah, definitely always want to avoid the 50-50 Barons
when possible.
Course. That's what I can see wanting to do, but it fits the storylines of Team Dignitas struggling at Baron, so that always happens, even though this split I feel like it's happened less to Team Dignitas.
We have gone to choose your own adventure, and C9 went to page 100, where they continue to win in this game.
You have to either peel off the Baron for a fight if you're willing to do that, or take the Baron and bail out the backside.
Right.
When you do the Baron and go to a fight, you're lowering your chance of success. Team Dignitas probably thought they were going to win the team fight anyway with the Fed Twitch and the Fed Azir, but it was just not to be.
Still, mistakes made by C9. The Rengar is there. Lod could pop out of nowhere. We saw him take down Sneaky earlier. I think C9 is going to play a bit more safe to prevent those things from happening. There are still options on both sides to get back into this game, though. C9 as they pressured down mid. That turret stood for some 30 minutes. And now that they can get the map opened up and move quickly between the inner turrets, I don't think Dignitas has much chance to stop the siege.
Yeah, and C9 is just playing these team fights so well. Team Dignitas continue to clump for the AoE abilities of C9, and now they're dissuaded from even initiating as the turrets continue to fall.
Rocket almost finished up here for C9. That redemption is there, so they can stay a little bit longer in these fights against Dignitas' tanks. A few more core items coming in. Nice job.
That death cap on Jensen is super scary if you're Laud. No magic resist. He's got Hurricane Blade of the Ring King, Infinity Edge, which is a little bit of critical mass for Twitch, right? When you hit that point and then you turn on your ultimate, you're hitting multiple targets and you can obliterate a team. However, as soon as you do that, you're standing in one place and there's a Jarvan and Orianna that want to kill you instantly, and they can because you have no defenses. So it is a highly volatile team fight state right now.
And the way that Dignitas has actually been taking these fights, Jensen's ball finds the back line. We saw the 2 ults just near Baron Pit, so you are correct to think Lot could be in a very big danger here as we start this one off. Remember, Keen has that Quicksilver Sash to try and keep everybody safe. He got that very early as he feels he will be a big controller of these fights, as Azir does. Few back to mid lane. Looks like top won't be pushed for the time being here as Someday starts to join with everybody else. 50 seconds on that Elder Drake. Control over to Cloud9 at this point.
Absolutely. However, if they do get the other Drake, it's a weaker version. They just have the 1 Elemental Drake stack on Infernal.
Yeah, and how much do you want to prevent that as well for a 3 stack?
Yeah, how much do you care? I think so much of it is right now less about the Elder Drake for C9, although it's important, but more about being able to set up the right fight. Currently, C9 have good wards within the jungle, and they control the corridors right now with the Jarvan, Orianna, and Malzahar. So if Team Dignitas doesn't get the right flank off for a fight, things get very messy very quickly.
Ray hovering just on the top side of everyone here. Props to Ray for keeping a very confident mindset in this game as he was aggressed on. Very easy to try and make those engages later in the game, just off of still wanting to make a play. I had a bad early game, got to make that play. Still making the right choices. And the team has really been able to catapult off of a few double kills he's had starting these fights off. Although crazy, that's what we expect from Ray. It's going to be a crazy engage.
Exactly, and he has recovered. He's a very bruisery Jarvan, but still packs a decent punch that when combined with an Orianna can burst out pretty much anyone. Ooh, Sneaky, very good start on the side of that fight.
Nobody should be taking damage like that if the fight's not going to go all the way, and it looks like Ray takes the first flag and drag in. Contract's also getting quite hurt as the team resets 5. Ray gets hooked in. Heal coming in from Sneaky and Jensen, but that's going to put them in a really bad spot. Xpecial gets the grasp in from Smoothie, and they just walk away from this so far.
Jensen still has Shockwave. He didn't have an opportunity for it right there. You can see the Tom Kench twitch coming in clutch there as Ray ulted Laud, only for Xpecial to immediately devour him, so he stayed up. And despite the nice start by Sneaky onto Chaser on the start of that fight, Team Dignitas did win.
Jensen actually still having his heal there, just Sneaky's was used in the fight to correct myself. So, see how much they can bait in another one or get Dignitas into their own corridor for another Shockwave fight. See them, they're trying to control these right now, and that Elder Drake still has Dig Vision right underneath it.
These are the stages of the game that people need to be able to reevaluate and reset who is fed and who is not in these games, because when you have these large gold swings, oftentimes it's hard to switch into a winning mindset or an even game mindset when you're so used to snowballing over. I think it took Team Dignitas a little bit too long in this game to realize that it was getting close, and they were kind of throwing themselves into dangerous situations thinking their goal lead would win it for them.
Right.
That last fight shows me that they have been able to kind of mentally recover from that, trying to play the fight in a very measured fashion. They were able to fight it in the mid lane, which was more spread out and less vulnerable to a Shockwave or a Cataclysm, and as such, we're not devastated by those abilities. But this has been the area where Team Dignitas has struggled this game. The corridors leading into Cloud9's jungle from the Baron Pit.
2 Guardian Angels on the side of Dignitas here. C9 has a bit more work on their plate now. It's one of those for someday, quite tanky to come back up. Also, the Iceborne Gauntlet, a little bit more damage, but lock down his targets, even if he doesn't have a passive on him. Really looking to finalize any of the kills they're able to hook onto immediately. The redemption is finished, a little bit more sustained for these fights to come in here, but again, this corridor, gotta watch where Jensen is if we enter this spot again.
Yeah, and we've seen this. Team Dignitas doesn't want to follow through because they go down the ball, but they want to do Baron. Last time, this got stolen by Contracts. This time, you'd want to see Team Dignitas engage, but they do not want to overcommit.
Ray gets hit first, watching Lod towards the backside, waiting to open up with that extra attack speed. It looks like he's going to have to hold off for now. They're actually looking for both Lod and Chaser at this point.
It's such a tight space in the jungle here. And Team Dignitas does not want to opt into another 50-50, but what they do want to do is push mid lane and cut C9 off. Team Dignitas is trying to avoid the tight spaces.
I feel like Ray could get a ball here and just go right into the side of the team. This puts the back line almost towards the front when you go horizontal like this. Keen's gonna shift himself out. Actually looks like Cloud9 doesn't want to take the fight themselves either. Going down would mean Baron for either side, especially C9's base, if Dignitas are able to take this with where the minions are. Pressure for Dig has been on the bot side. They get a lot of damage on that second tier turret.
Yeah, and at this stage of the game, there's different tiers of what a lost fight means. If it's a 5-for-0 ace, it's probably your Nexus. If it's a 2-for-0 fight, then it becomes a major objective and a large lead in the game. Because right now, it's pretty even. Team Dignitas was low off that one. Someday has teleport. C9's on Baron. We're going to have another fight.
Chaser in the brush. They make him pull off. Baron's down just below half. It looks like it'll actually stay there for a bit because of the Voidlings. And it's just jockeying for position here. Everybody's flexing their muscles. Who's going to make the first mistake, or I should say, good move? Getting in, though, I feel like would cost you a teammate at this point.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of patterns in this game. C9 hoping the Team Dignitas will get caught in the jungle. Team Dignitas recognizing that's not what they want to do, so they're changing it up. There, Someday kept them interested for long enough and allowed the Twitch Azir with double Mountain Drakes to just melt that Elder Dragon, and now Team Dignitas might think they're strong enough to force a fight where they have lost it previously.
Baron has just kind of been peppered the past few minutes here by both teams. I feel like it could really be the finalizer as we go back to it. The rest of Dignitas now to exit the base, and full inventories mean less control wards here. Teams are to stick together and use the vision they have.
Yeah, a couple of things here. Laud has gone with Zeal to start his final item instead of any form of magic resistance, so he is still incredibly vulnerable to getting blown up on Jensen. That increases the stress on Xpecial to stay next to him and eat him. The triple Elemental Drake plus Elder is insane for damage, but it does not help them if they get blown up. So that is why C9 could potentially still take this fight, despite normally an Elder of this stature is unfightable.
A ping in the bot lane. Dignitas is aware they have a wave that needs I should say pruning, I say prepping, but it's already prepped by Cloud9 to almost take down that inhibitor turret. So Dignitas need to force C9's hand now to make sure they can get to that wave. It's the fight or the wave. Xpecial gets specialized from Smoothie. He can get himself to safety with the great help. Ray is into the back line. Keen takes the hit. Emperor's Divide doesn't push anybody around, but Ray could burn down, and the hook goes to Contract. Chaser in so we can get the GA pop, and now C9 re-looking 2 control wards to make sure they have vision over the brush.
Waters are on the side, but Jensen still has Shockwave. The fight has yet to have a casualty.
80 carries at full HP in perfect position on the back line for the fight so far, but neither have really been able to deliver the damage either, as it's just been too intense. Down to half HP, Baron looking for Contracts and Chaser. They're going to be in on a Contracts. Chaser low down to the left side. They're also routing C9 to the top, so they'll have a way towards that mid lane. They don't have any minions though, so I wonder where they go from this. It looks like they may just decide to wait this one out and back it. C9's going to try to push the wave down towards mid. That wave we were talking about in the bot lane is slamming the bottom turret.
Pretty crazy that C9 played that fight into a triple Elemental Drake and didn't suffer casualties. No one really got picked off, and they even get the turret now. Everyone on Dignitas is gone. They can't make it back in time.
Bring around the Rosie for C9. Dignitas finds themselves on the other side of the play, the wrong side. And Cloud9 take down Baron.
C9 just does things that other teams can't do in the North American LCS. Down to a triple Elemental Drake, fighting them, switching around to be able to pick up the Baron this time after coming eventually from a 6,000 gold deficit. Very crazy game we have here, Riv, but these are the type of clutch plays C9 has been able to make to get themselves into second place, as they are often fighting in even games or from a deficit.
That's true. They are very aware of how to come back from a deficit and do it in a way that would turn the game on its head. Also, at a moment, like you said, if too many go down, it is such a gain at this point, and possibly your Nexus. Lucky for Dignitas, they didn't lose too many. Just the Baron in position on the map. C9 has been able to flood their wards forward now, and they are playing at a different level on Dignitas' side of the map and ready to engage, I think, at this point, instead of waiting for Dig.
Yeah, so a couple things to catch up on. Jensen's build is full, so he is pretty much at max one-shot power. Laud completed his Phantom Dancer, still no magic resist, you're not expecting to get anything soon. X-Special has no QSS, so if you can lock down X-Special, he cannot devour Laud if he opens in the wrong spot. But Laud, because he's playing with no defenses, is so far back. Chaser got caught during a flank!
Oh, the Nether Grasp and the 4 pylon onto Chaser.
Very questionable flank right there. Now they're in tons of trouble. That's probably game.
A solo kill coming in for Jensen. That was the immediate dissonance into Shockwave. Ray goes back to just be a nuisance to the team. He is going to go down in this situation, but it gives Cloud9 time to play. It looks like they're going to be taking down the inhibitor on the bot side and the middle if they aren't just going to go for the Nexus turrets with the Baron up minions now.
Yeah, Laud needs a way to clear these minions, maybe with spray and pray. He might not even need to focus on the fight, but he's going for a fight. Gets exhausted.
Smoothie's the first hit. He's hardly doing any damage. Locket onto Command Protect, and Laud is finding himself basically hitting brick walls on the backside. The Redemption goes down as the last bit of effort to save the members of Dignitas. And C9 is looking for the last Nexus turret.
15 seconds on Chaser, 20 on Keen. How low can this team, Dignitas team, get the C9 team? They want to be able to end.
Getting to the Nexus is almost too much pressure with these spawns, but they're trying to get the kills in now. Laud gets hit immediately. That's the shutdown. That's the attempt for Dignitas to stop the siege. And Cloud9 holds their breath in the early game to find the kills, find the fights, and the Baron to end game 1 over Dignitas.
Boy, that was a very interesting game.
Yeah.
At one point, a 6,500 gold lead by Team Dignitas falls to the mid and late game team fighting of C9. That will be a tough one for Team Dignitas to bounce back from as C9 come together where they usually do in the mid-late game to find yet another victory.
I feel like in the mid-game, Dignitas fell into a mentality of, as we were talking about, we are in the lead, but we're gaining this lead from kind of being in the lane, allowing Chaser to do things. Let's kind of keep it there. And keeping it there allows C9 to just kind of figure out what's going on and then turn things around for themselves. It took a bit, but that was the stall that Dignitas allowed really C9 back in.
Yeah, exactly. And there were so many really close fights in that mid-game where C9 was just on the closest margins. So many things in that game that could have swung the other way, but, you know, sometimes those are the margins games are decided on.
Absolutely. There's more games to go, so for a deeper dive into that game, let's check in with our analysts.
Thank you very much, Riv. C9 able to pick up the victory there in a comeback win here in game 1. But Kobe, at the beginning of the day, we were talking about the trends for both of these teams. C9 on a downward trend, struggling a little bit more, poor early games that we've seen out of them, with Dignitas kind of excelling on an upward trend. The first half of this game played exactly to that.
Yeah, it did seem like it a lot, right? Cloud9, they were making a lot of chasing plays where they're overreaching a bit into the jungle, you know, not necessarily taking everything that Dignitas could do into account, and Team Dignitas had a lot of good punishes. So this one, Chaser does a decent job of dodging the cocoons once he finds himself in this very dangerous situation, and Keen goes in to save him. You know, he gets off that heal there to give him the boost, and then X-Special comes in to save him, so it's all this saving team lane attitude. The key is, Someday could have teleported early and had that knee-jerk reaction like very far down in the lane or something, but he holds it till a crucial time until he sees C9 overcommit. Like, they're talking and they're confident enough that up until that point right there, like, they're making a decent escape.
Right. I think it's important to note, flash, 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 and flash. Have all 5 flashes on C9 have all been used, right, in just this fight alone, and all aggressively. And I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind here, is that these are aggressive flashes forward, and so the usefulness, the impact of this teleport becomes that much greater because of that reason.
Literally 0.2 seconds after Sneaky flashes forward, and you've seen everyone blow all these flashes, that is when the teleport comes in. They've committed past this lane, and that's why Team Dignitas can turn this around. They chase it on through here as Someday comes in to save the day. Everybody's extremely low. They still do have to fight this out really well, too. And even in the early stages, you can see the power of setting up with a tank on the front line, these carries on the backside. Laud and Keen are able to chase basically behind Someday and clean up most of those kills. However, then the mid game happens. Then the late game objectives come
Right, before we get to the mid game, though, I think it's important to recognize here that this is elements of the Dignitas, team play that we've been looking for and have seen improve. That is very clearly good communication, right? Because it is communicated that the flashes have been blown, or Someday is actively watching that fight, uses the teleport to their advantage. They come out in a 2-for-1. Out of that fight. Great. We've got control of the early game. We even saw, beyond that, a couple good moves to extend the gold lead. But once we get to that kind of mid to late game global objectives, right, around the Baron, around the Dragon, that's when things start to fall apart a little bit for Dignitas.
Exactly. And there were a couple before that as well where Xpecial goes in on his solo Tom Kench mission, and you get like, it doesn't matter too much because they're so far ahead. And then, Laud's trying to 1v1 or something, you're like, okay.
Right.
But really, the crucial thing you're talking about, when it comes down to it, late game objective fights are what matters in this game, and Team Dignitas had a very large lead that they could have used to try and secure this game.
That's the thing. You can have a 10K gold lead, but just a single smite we've seen in the past can definitely turn the tides of a game, and at 30-30 contract, stealing this Baron, also netting a 3-for-1 for C9, really did make that exactly happen.
And we're showing this again. Honestly, I don't think that this is such a terrible call. Everyone's like, oh my god, haha, Team Dignitas Baron throw, blah, blah, blah. Like, they have 2 Mountain Drakes, an Infernal Drake, Azir, and Twitch super fed, plus they've got that control ward turning off the ward. Maybe you can say, oh yeah, they should have spent the extra time to actually kill it so that they couldn't teleport in, but like, you can burn that Baron down and just throw out the Azir wall. Contracts makes this look easy. That is not an easy Baron steal.
Right.
Flashing forward and barely getting it as he's getting ulted out. I mean, maybe you say, oh yeah, the Azir should have ulted earlier, all this stuff. That one was one of the turning points. The more important ones, though.
I was going to say, that to a degree is a forgivable mistake because you can see the thought process there from Dignitas. So the choice being, hey, push him out, finish the Baron. That seems to be what the call that was made was. Unfortunately, still barely in range to get the smite down, and of course, Chaser not landing his.
Then Panic breaks out after there's the smite still.
Right, exactly. But let's go ahead and take a look at the bigger fight that you're talking about. This is at 42 minutes into the game. C9 getting the Baron here, but it's an Elder Drake Dignitas that they're running into.
Yeah, and this is like one of many skirmishes. They skirmished around this for so long, keeping Team Dignitas from committing all into there. Eventually, though, they get this fight, and they chase them back into this corridor that they keep on mentioning, where Team Dignitas, they've been chunked out so low by like maybe 3 re-engages around this Baron pit that C9 were able to win in small health leads. You get these incremental health leads after each skirmish, and yeah, it's a full disengage, but it finally takes its toll. Team Dignitas have to recall because they can no longer stand up in one of those 5v5s, and you kind of have to make this decision, oh, are we all going to sit here in the enemy jungle and wait for them to go back on this Baron where we don't have vision and we'd have to face check and probably lose the fight?
I love that. I love that map play, right? Force the opposing team into a decision where they do not win, right? They either back to save their mid turret and inhibitor, but therefore give you the right of way to the Baron, or they stay in a threatening position on the Baron and give up the mid turret. There's really no good decision to make there, and that's where we see Cloud9 still as a team that's at the top of the table, right? In those late game situations, we still see them be successful in their macro shot calling. It's the early game for C9 that we want to see cleaned up.
Yeah, the shot calling as well as the way that they get this pressure around Baron is good trading in the 5-on-5s. You could say, oh yeah, it doesn't matter because they didn't kill anyone there. Small health leads on the tank add up. Then a small health lead on the jungler, then a small health lead on the AD carry. Like, those are the things that allow them to make these sorts of plays as well.
All right, game 2, Impact will be coming in, so that's important to note. But the player from game 1 that I want to talk about would be Jensen. We talked about at the beginning of the day, him versus Keen is going to be a huge turn or swinging kind of point here that the match or the series would hinge on. And in game 1, looking a little bit more to form here on Orianna, landing some big shockwaves.
Definitely. Multiple shockwaves landing for him. He was a big part of a lot of these trades as well, by the way. He starts it out with a shield shield on an ally so they can go into trade, and then moves his ball from that ally to get his damage out. So he's the one who gained a lot of momentum in those skirmishes as well. And while Contracts had this miracle steal, he had a pretty bad mid game, so he's not going to be able to get it.
At the end of the day, though, if I'm Dignitas, I don't think I'm leaving the stage here ultra upset about game one, right? Yes, it's a bummer that we got the loss. But if I'm looking at how, the story of the game up to that 30-minute mark, having a gold lead, I would still be confident coming into game two that, hey, if we clean up just a little bit and become a little bit more consistent in our mid-game, or rather conservative in our mid-game shot calling, that we might be able to close out games 2 and 3.
Definitely close. Problem right now is that close is not going to cut it because they have to win these games because they're the one in that race for the final playoff spot.
Very true. Do or die time for Dignitas. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to step away for a quick break. When we come back, it's Team